Well, it's such an honor to have you on here, Tracy. Like I was saying, like I love the work that you've been doing to market our beautiful island and really to just put it from a place of like real authenticity of like really what it is to be an islander and to be a St. Martiner and what is it like what are the things that are important to us instead of it just being like oftentimes these very like touristy sort of like views of our country when it's like we are so much more than just like very basic tourist attractions. Like we're more
Yeah.
than just, a little tour here, a
We
little thing
humans
there.
live there.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
people that have things to say, stories to share. Like there's a
Mm.
beautiful culture here that I feel like sometimes just sort of gets like erased or just like not told about. And that for me as an islander really breaks my heart because to me the thing that makes St. Martin so special is the people. Like more
Yeah.
than anything, like it's
And the
the
stories they
people that
tell.
live there.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, when I see the content that you make that really sort of highlights that lens, like I just feel so touched as like because like for me
Oh,
this is the
thank
stuff that
you.
I would even want to share to people when I'm like go to St. Martin, but here is why. Like don't go and watch YouTube videos from these random people that don't actually live here that are like, oh, it just be triggering me and giving me high blood pressure. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to see this. But then when I see like content that is like from people that are living there that are showing our festivals that are showing just like the small things that you would otherwise miss, that your hotel is not going to tell you about. To me those are the things that really make our island special because it's not a cookie cutter experience. Like this is something you're only going to get on St. Martin. And so I'm curious like just to even just dive into this conversation of where did you even notice this gap and like realize that this was something that you wanted to fill and to like really be a voice for that authentic St. Martin experience of what does it actually mean to live on the island and to be a part of the island and like the stories and cultural things that just really are just so key to the experience of being a St. Martiner.
I really think I owe it to my parents because my parents, we traveled with our parents. We've lived in French Guyana. I lived in Montreal, and then here. And my parents were always close to the people. Like we're not. We listen to people history. We ask questions. So when we were in French Guyana, my parents were in the Amazonie, en Amazonie sur le fleuve. So they were there, and I grew up. I did like 18 months there, and I would go to the daycare. I was close to the people, always close to the people, listening their stories, listening to how they live, and even we did a family trip in Thailand. We did everything except the touristic stuff. And we were with locals. I mean, for a month, we were with locals asking them how to get there, what to do, what to eat, like make us visit if you can, these things. So we were always close to people. And I think I owe it to my parents, because we do not come on an island or in a country as we know it all, we're gonna teach you how to live and these things. No, we're there, we watch how people live, and we learn from them. And seriously, I'm grateful for that education, really. So yeah. And when I came on the
I
island,
feel that.
yes, when I came on the island, I think I was 11, 12, maybe 13, I don't remember. But it was beautiful to see. We have like more than 120 nationalities living together, and it was beautiful seeing all that culture, that melting pot they call it here. And to me, this is a strength. This is a strength, and I know like Bali is trending and Morocco is trending and all these things are trending, and we can find this sometimes on the island. Like now the trend is, the music, techno music, which is fine, but not, let's not
Mhm.
lose who we are really, and to me that's important. Like everyone can express their self, who they are, but give everybody a space because we are 120 more than 120 nationalities living here.
Facts.
Yeah.
I agree. I love that approach of like learning about a country through the people, because I feel like oftentimes you're
Yeah.
right. Like when you see travel of any kind, it's usually very much like all the Instagrammable shots, you know, like you want to go to that beach that you saw on Instagram, you want to go to that
Yeah.
restaurant that you saw on Instagram, or that other influencers are going to, because that must be what it is to actually go there. And it's like, no, not at all. Like if you do that, you're really getting a very shallow lens of what that country is and what it actually means
Yeah.
to be a part of that community. And I think like when you go and you actually hang out with the people and you find out the truth of like, actually I wouldn't go to that beach, you know, because blah 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 blah, you would want to actually go to these beaches, or oh yeah, like yeah, that restaurant's very popular with the tourists, but if you want the good food, you want to go here, you
But
know.
even the tourists, sometimes I'm a bit shocked because me, let's say when we were in Thailand, sometimes we would end up in places. I'm like, but there are no locals. There's something wrong because if I don't see locals, I'm like, this place is man-made. I shouldn't be there. So I'm not going there. Like Phuket and these things, I didn't. We didn't go there because I mean, what's the point? It's not. I'm visiting Thailand. I want to see Thailand's culture. It's the same thing here. Sometimes I see tourists. They're in the same place with only tourists, and I'm like, they don't see there's something wrong because where are the locals?
They don't see it. I feel like for them, they think that that is the experience. They're like, yeah, like I'm here where all the other
And I'm
tourists
not
are.
blaming them. I'm not blaming them. You know, I'm really trying to understand. And sometimes I think they're coming. Um, we are selling a kind of experience that is not linked to our culture. So they're
Facts
coming with this idea in mind.
of what St. Martin
And I'm like,
is. Yeah,
wow,
exactly.
yeah,
It's even funny when I tell people here that I'm from the island, they're like, oh, that place where, like, that plains, you can, like, touch the plains. And it's like, that's so interesting to
oh
me
yeah, the
that
plane
that is, you know, like if there's anything that sort of transcends, it's that one, you know,
is
experience
the
of
plane.
like Sunset Beach. And it's like, okay, that is our island. Yes, you do have the, at least the right island, because oftentimes people are actually thinking about the Virgin Islands, which I'm like, oop, not exactly
Wrong
over
island.
there. You know, at least when they tell me that, I know you're talking about the right island. I'm like, okay, at least we're on the same page about which of these islands. But it's like there's so much more, I feel like, to St. Martin, but it's so hard to
Exactly,
explain that,
exactly.
you know? Like when you're like the only one, I'm like, how do I explain to these people that have just no framework of
And me, when
understanding?
I tell them, it's not the first attraction that comes to my mind because a sandbat is painful. The thing you go behind a jet and woohoo, it's painful.
It
It
is.
hurts you.
I recall, like, I remember, like, it was like a field trip, and I was like, I don't understand how these tourists are enjoying this. I'm like, this hurts. Like, this literally
It
hurts. Being
hurts.
pelted by these grains of sand is not fun at all. Like, it really is not. It hurts
Yeah.
so much.
So I'm like, it's not the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of the island, but it's always the first thing that comes up.
Exactly. It's like, yeah, it's like very much like we have this very clear marketing story, and that is the story that we sell over and over. Yeah, you know, we're a friendly island. There's the Dutch and the French. It's a open
Oh,
border.
you
We
don't want
have
to
the
start on the friendliness
beaches.
because may I have a problem with, okay, maybe people won't understand, but to me, being friendly can be like, how to say that properly? It's nice to have that name, we're the friendly island, we are welcoming and these things. But then you can understand like submissiveness, or not submissiveness, but you
The
accept anything
connotation.
and you
Yeah.
have to be friendly because you are the friendly island. But even though we are the friendly island, you cannot do any kind of things on. You need respect too,
This is true. Yeah,
and
that entitlement, I think, is what it
sometimes
comes with
that,
people thinking they
yes,
can do whatever and talk to you however, and you have to
the friendly
cater.
island is beautiful, but it comes with boundaries. That's it. It's nice saying like that. We
Yes.
need boundaries.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I feel like that whole connotation because it stems from almost like that sort of like colonial of like we are here to serve tourists and the tourists that we typically
Exactly,
serve
servitude.
are
Yeah, that's
American
the
or
term I was looking
European,
for.
and it's just like, what are we really about here? Like I feel like we're more
Yeah.
than just servers to, the wealthy westerners that are trying to get away from their shitty lives in their country.
Mm,
Like we're not, it's like almost like we're here to sort of fulfill their escapism fantasies of like what they hate in their
yeah.
country, and then they can sort of escape that in ours and live out their fantasies, and we have to sort of cater to that. And it's like,
And be friendly, be nice. Like you have to be nice. When it's high season, I'm like, I'm like, wow, that much of things we do. Like the bench at the bus. Like I know a lot of people explain it to me, like, to put the bench for the tourists to come out. And for me, it doesn't make sense. I'm not gonna, if it, thanks God, I'm not a taxi driver because I would have never put a bench for you.
I don't know. This is where like I get confused by our marketing strategy, and I'm curious, like as someone that has been more involved in like really trying to tell that more authentic side, sort of how do you sort of view like the way that we market the island? Because obviously they have a specific customer in mind. We know this. They know who they're trying to get,
Yeah,
and now I feel like it has shifted a bit where I do hear them saying like, oh, they're trying to target African Americans too, but it's still like typically from like Atlanta is like the key area that they're trying to target them from, and the rest are
yeah.
essentially white people, like white Europeans or white Americans. Sometimes it's like
Mm.
high wealth Asians as well, but typically like there's a very clear target market that they're going after, which to me like I don't really understand. Like I get they want to get money, but I don't know, like these people don't often spend money, like especially people that come on the cruise, they're not
But
there to
after I
spend.
understand we're a really small island, and we live of only tourism. So I kind of understand that thing of the fear of, having nothing. We've been through Irma and COVID, and it was really difficult for people. So I get it. You don't want to go into that place anymore. You don't want to go there anymore at all. But maybe if we just take time to do things, not like differently. And some islands are doing things differently. I was watching at Grenada's Instagram page, just like that. And I'm like, wow, if you look at their Instagram page, their culture is forward, it's the other way around. They're highlighting the people, highlighting the culture. And I was like, I want to go there. So now Grenada is on my list because I'm like, wow, that island is beautiful. I just want to visit. The same goes for Dominica. The way they highlighted their festival with the people, the culture. You have a day you have to wear madras, the yeah, the traditional clothing. And I was like, oh, this is so beautiful. I want to visit there too. These things. That works for me. But yeah, really depends on your target. And I guess the target, maybe they're not so much on the history, the culture, and these things.
But it's so like, yeah, like you were saying, like for me, like as a potential consumer, like we, even though we're islanders, we travel too. The thing that, like you were saying, like for me, it's the culture that is going to bring me to a place. Like it's the nature of that place. It's like
Oh,
showing
yeah.
like they care about their ecosystem. They're creating experiences that are not cookie cutter. Like when I went to Hawaii, I didn't want to go where the tourists were. Like I was at Waikiki for like a day and I was like already I'm over this. Like I can already see like it was literally like Front Street 2.0, you know what I mean, where you just have a bunch of
Yeah.
luxury stores, you have this boardwalk-esque sort of environment and you have this man-made beach, which is our Great Bay, you know, Phillipsburg, all man-made and
Mm,
it's not
I see.
I'm like, okay, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, this is just a
What
show
else?
for the people that want that
Mm,
show. And immediately we went to the North Shore, which was more really like natural, slow pace, much more island centric, culture focused. And I was like, yes, this is more of what speaks to me. Like, we could go on a hike where there was literally nobody else, Tracy. Like, it was just me, my boyfriend, and one other couple on this trail and we found it because like the other hike people there was like a mat it was like the touristy hike like the touristy waterfall and there was like lines upon lines of people who obviously clearly not hiking to go nowhere to see this little waterfall but you have to pay all this money to go see and we were like why would we do that when we could hike a trail though it takes more work because we have to hike there but it's completely our own it's completely free and you're getting an experience that nobody can
yeah.
take from you you know and like that was way more rewarding than paying to go see that other waterfall would have ever been. And for me, like when I look at how St. Martin markets itself, it's very much that. Like we're trying to give these like very clear experiences that you can pay for. Like you can go here, pay for this, get this. Instead of it being like actually explore the island. Like don't have any itinerary. Just go around,
Explore.
see where you end
Yes.
up. Like if you're hungry, don't look at the list of top 10 restaurants. Just go to the one that's right there and see what they have. Like, all the food is going to be good. Like, it's a tourism island, but it's like people have this very clear list from their research, which is all marketing efforts from bloggers, to just give this very standard experience of like, when you go to St. Martin, this is exactly what you do, and everybody follows that exact same list. And it's like nobody's like
Exactly.
taking the what do you say, like going off the beaten path and just exploring, like which I feel like is like the whole point. Like you're on an island, explore.
Our generation is changing though because we're not doing tourism like the older generation.
Hmm.
We want more. We're seeking more authentic experience. We're seeking adventures. So yeah, I see that. Our generation, we're changing.
Hmm. I guess how did you go about like even figuring out the types of stories about St. Martin that you wanted to highlight that like you really resonated with you that you felt like other people would love to see?
Me, to be honest, I go. Let's say, the other day I went to Phillipsburg. I go to Phillipsburg on Back Street to places people don't even go, and I just roam in the street, and then I found this guy. He was fixing chair, and I'm like, oh wow, and that's it. I'm starting to talk. I'm like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, really? And then, like, it's beautiful. Can I take a picture? And that's how it starts.
Wow.
Because I just discover, I walk, and then I talk to people. I ask, oh, I love this, and how did you get there? And this and that. I ask a lot of questions. My
Hmm.
parents always told me I ask a lot of questions, so it serves me in life for that.
I
And
love
this is
it.
how it goes. Yeah.
That's awesome. I feel like it's good to ask questions. Like, how else are you gonna know? You gotta be curious. You know, you gotta figure things out. I feel like people are too afraid to ask questions. I don't get it. I'm like, guys, like, how are you gonna learn if you don't ask? How?
And I'm
How?
always trying to understand. Like last time I saw on in the newspaper, there were 31 suicide attempts, and I'm like, whoa, on a just front side, just front side. Can you imagine? And I was really thinking, it got me thinking, and I'm like, wow. So people come on the island thinking it's paradise, but others are really suffering mentally. And I was really thinking about that. I'm like, how you get to that point? 31 suicide attempt. To me, that's a lot just for friend side. Just for friend side.
For a little rock like ours, that should be very
Yeah.
alarming.
And that to me, I think that are the people who dare to talk, maybe they seek help and so they could count them in. But the people who didn't talk and didn't seek professional help, we don't know these ones. They're struggling alone, we don't know them, but I'm sure there are more. The number is already high, but I think it's higher.
That is true because
And
for
I
a
was
lot of
like,
people, they're just too
wow.
afraid to even ask for help and they often suffer in silence.
Yeah.
That is so
And we
crazy.
are in this culture of you gotta be strong. You live on the island, it's beautiful, you have the beach and all of that. What are you complaining for? You have
Exactly.
nothing to complain about.
Like you have to be
To me, that is,
resilient. You have to be strong. Say
oh,
Martin
that
strong.
that resilient thing. One day I did an interview, and the person asked me about, you are very resilient after Irma. I'm like, we are in 2022. Don't market our resilience anymore. No, no, no. We want peace. We want to rest. We don't want to be resilient anymore. The resilience
I
is
feel it.
toxic at this point.
I
I
feel
mean,
it.
Irma was in 2017. Leave us alone with that resilience. Oh no.
I
Me,
feel it.
people are like resilient. I'm like, no. At this point, I don't want to be resilient. Like, leave me alone with that resilience.
I feel it. Like I honestly think it's like a thing,
Oh
especially in
no.
within Black culture, that we have to be strong and we have to be tough and we need to just
Oh no,
stick
no.
it through. And I'm like, that's so much work, bro. Like I'm just trying to rest,
Oh
you know. Like,
no.
can I just soak up the sun? Like, can you just not bother me? Like, I'm just here to be peaceful and tranquil. Like why do we have to be strong? Like, especially as women, it's like, why do we need to always have to be strong and tough and push and push and push? Like, can
Mm,
I breathe? You know, can that be okay?
just yeah.
Can I just take up space and not have to do anything for a second? Like, give me a moment, please. But I agree. I think it's very much like when you live in paradise, people assume like everything is good. Like you have to be happy when you're living in paradise, as though the place is like all that you need to be joyful every day of your life. And it's like, no, like it doesn't matter where you are. Like you can still suffer.
They think like in the morning you wake up, you open your window, you have that kind of stillband music, then you grab a coconut, you go to the beach, then you come back. That's the island life. I feel. I'm like, oh,
That is so
and
funny.
I'm
I
like,
feel
no.
that. Where people think we just live in trees and we're on hammocks all day, and then at night we have a bonfire party, and the fishermen bring us the catch, and we eat, and we go to sleep. No internet, no
I do.
connection to the outer world.
On weekends, I'm trying to have that life, discover the snorkeling and these things. But on weekdays with the traffic and all of that, I'm like, no, that is not my life. I'm stuck in traffic. Sometimes I'm pissed. So yeah, if you only know.
The traffic be killing me. For an island so
Oh
small,
my
I'm
god.
like, how is this? How? I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
like it's like almost like we've sort of like defined our success to be very much like what these capitalist countries have. So everyone's like, I need to have a new car, I need to have this, I need to have that. And I feel like as islanders, like that's not our way of life. And you can see it because the island cannot handle so many cars. Like, where are you going? Where? The island is only
Yeah.
so big. Where are you going?
I feel, yeah, right now the traffic, it's insane. Yeah.
And it's a big buzzkill because you can't even have any experience if you stuck in traffic. And I can tell you, these tourists did not leave the traffic prone country to go to an island with more traffic, you know? You would think we'd have like a quota or something. And it's like I just see more car dealerships with more cars and I'm like, where do you expect these cars to go? On what where?
Yeah, I don't know. That is another topic. actually.
With the mental health, like I guess like do you think there are resources for people to be able to have more discussion around that? Because obviously, like having 31 people attempt suicide is like concerning, but I'm curious, like, have you seen like the collectivité say anything about that in which like there are more social services for that?
For front side, I know there is a structure called CMP, but whenever I mention that, they tell me they're busy. Like, you really need a serious you it has to be really serious so they can take you like now because they're busy. It's they go by priorities. So I know that. And then the hospital looks like it's busy too. And I see more and more people in the streets. So I'm like, there's something going on, you know? I saw that they're building a women's shelter on the front side. They're working on that. So it's great for women. Because there's something called France Victime on front side. It's for
Mm.
all the women, all people that are victims, but women who are victim of domestic abuse, they will have something for them, a house. So
Mm.
to me, that's great. But then there's something we need to talk about. It's mental health. People have to be open with their feelings, number one. Like, when you're not doing fine, say you're not doing fine. And I know it's really hard, first of all, on an island to say you're not doing fine, because you're supposed to be resilient and strong and a strong mother and strong and strong. But no. And then if your friends cannot understand that and they try to push you to be fine, I'm like, I'm not saying to leave them, but just tell them, I'm just telling you I'm not fine because you asked and I'm being honest. So if you cannot hear that I'm not fine, don't ask them, you know?
I feel
No, but
that.
it's true because sometimes people are like, how are you? But they're not ready for the real answer. It can be fine one day, but one day it cannot be fine. Yeah, so this and therapy, I feel like I'm very happy with the younger generation because they really, some are really taking mental health seriously. I don't know if it's you who interviewed Big Dano. It's you, no?
Mhm.
I saw he did an interview and he talked about he went to therapy, and I was like,
Mm.
that's amazing. This guy, by the way, is great. The things he's saying, and I'm like, wow. And it's so important to have male figures like that. Like, he's from the island, he's a male, he respects women, he encourages other to respect women, and he talks about mental health. I'm like, yay, that's amazing. It can encourage his people to do the work.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
doesn't make you less of a man to support women and to like take care of your mental health. Like if
Oh
anything, I feel
yeah.
like that just makes you stronger as an individual. And I do think, it is
Yeah.
hard for Caribbean men, black men especially, to like say that they're not doing okay cuz like there's like even more pressure to have to be tough and to keep it together and to not be
Mm,
emotional, and it's like why are you putting this burden on yourself, boo? Like, it's okay to cry. It's okay to be upset, to be
mm.
frustrated. Like, instead of beating a woman because of your problems, you should talk to somebody to get out whatever anger and frustration that you're dealing with inside of you. So you don't have to go out
Oh
and make
yeah.
your life worse by inflicting trauma on others because you don't know how to deal with your own pain. Because that's often what
Mm.
it is like when people have so much within them and they don't know how to deal with it, they lash out on others and it ends up just perpetuating the trauma instead of like doing the uncomfortable work of healing, which is very uncomfortable because it's like you have to face the
Oh
very
yeah, it's
thing that you've been
hard, it's
avoiding.
ugly.
Ugly. But it's
Yes,
so
ugly.
like when you're able to work through that, the relief and the lightness that you gain is like, and you can
Really.
finally be at peace and then you don't have to like worry as much, and you don't have to carry that weight with you everywhere, because like that is an old, that's his own job right there, to like have to
Mm,
constantly put on this facade of like I'm okay and everything is fine, but in reality like you're not okay, and it is okay to not be okay. Like I love that you said that.
yeah. For men, I feel like it's harder for them because the pressure is there. The pressure is there for them to
Mhm.
be tough, strong, and this. And me, seriously, I'm happy. I'm raising a son because I'm like I'm on a mission with this little boy. Like yes, he can express his feeling, and sometimes I hear people tell him, "Oh, you don't cry, you're a boy," and I'm like, "Cry, cry. If you feel like crying, cry." And tell them it's not because I'm
Yeah.
a boy I shouldn't cry. I'm like, oh my god, they're teaching them this thing very young.
I feel it. Yeah, it's like that narrative that just continues to perpetuate. And it is he's very lucky to have a
Oh
mom
yeah.
that can intercept that and be like, "You know what, baby? I heard what they told you, and mama's here to tell you it is okay to cry even though you're a boy. Like it is okay. Shed them tears, boo-boo,
Mm,
because if you keep it inside, that's an energy blockage that's just going to manifest as disease for later in life. Let that
oh
shit
yeah.
go. Let it go. Let
The
it
other
go.
day
Like
my
we're meant
best
to
friend told me,
cry."
yeah, my best friend, she has a boy too, and the other day we have the same type of education, we're doing the same type of thing, so we're always talking. And the other day she told me, my little boy, he was fixing something, and he told her, "You cannot fix it because you're a girl. I can do it because I'm a boy." She was like, "Oh my god, why he got that?"
She's like,
I
"Where is
didn't
this
teach
happening?
him that.
Who is telling him this?"
Yeah. So she told him, I can do it too. I can do it too. I can even show you. Mommy can fix things. There's nothing like boys and girls do this, and you know and he was like, oh. Then she showed him, I think sometimes you need to show them so they can understand the lessons. But I think at school, they got that at school.
They friends.
It was crazy.
It's
Yeah.
little friend circles. You just take one to say the nonsense, and then they're like, "My friend said it, so that must be true." And it's like, "Oh no, 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 my love, no." I mean, I feel like it's great that you have support, like when it comes to raising a boy, because I mean, in this world, especially on an island, there's so
Yeah.
much that goes on that you can't even, you're not there for. That when you have at least a
Mm,
community that's like you can raise them together, it shows them that there's more examples of that. Like you were saying, like showing them that look, this may be what people say, but in reality, that is not the case.
yeah. And also make them think, I know he's only 3, but I'm like, you can think. I just don't repeat. Look around you. I'm doing stuff that boys are supposed to do, and he's doing stuff that women are supposed to. He loves baking. I'm like, look at you. You love baking, which is not a girl thing. You love baking. Boys bake too, you know?
That is a
But very
fact.
early, these things about colors. He has a pink scooter, and people were like, "Oh, it's because you're a feminist. You bought him a pink scooter." And I'm like, "No, because they weren't any other store, and I don't care. I just don't care." And he loved the scooter. He doesn't even see it's pink.
Exactly. Like it's weird that people like take things that have nothing to do with gender
Oh,
and then make it something about gender. Like color, for example. I'm like, it's a color. Like I know we have color theory. I know
exactly.
there's the psychological side of color, but it's a freaking color. Like humans were the one that came into the world and was like, that color's for boys and that color's for girls. And it's like, first of
Oh,
all, did the
especially
color
when you
say
go to
that?
stores. When you go to a store, the other day I went to a store and they're like, "He's a boy or a girl?" I'm like, "I don't care. Just show me the thing." I mean, I don't go with colors by me. If I see it's good, I take it. There's no girl thing, boy thing by me.
But you see, that's where
So
those narratives, the seeds are planted so deep that no matter where you go, it's like it shows up again of like, oh, he's a boy, so he
yeah,
has to fall into this category. Oh, if she's a girl, okay, over here is for you. And it's like, bro, can we just like exist? Like, can it not matter? Like, these are
yeah,
things that serve
simple.
functions for us. Like,
Mm,
we create so much more than what needs to be, and it's all like social narratives that somehow showed up here, and then people are like, I like that, I'm going to repeat that, and it's like, but where did that come from? Like, why are you repeating that? And I think it's so good that you're like at least training him to think critically, because when you go out in the
oh
world,
yeah.
that's literally what it is. Like, you'll hear something, you'll see it on Instagram, and then that becomes fact, and it's like, but is it though? Is it really
Mm,
though? Just because everybody's sharing it doesn't mean that that is the truth, does not mean that that is correct.
yeah,
But if you don't think for yourself, you're just going to go along with the trend and then look like an idiot.
yeah, yeah. You have to teach them young. To me, that's because I won't always be with him. He will have friends, and sometime he will be influence, yeah, to do stuff.
Mm,
And I'm like, I won't always be there with him, so I'm trying to give him the knowledge so he can make his own choices eventually.
mm. I'm curious. So you mentioned that like people say you're a feminist. What does that mean to you? Because I feel like a lot of the time people throw this term around, and some people look at it as like feminists or men
Yeah, but
haters. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah. This I did research actually, so I can explain people. I do not hate men because there's a term for that. In like French, there's a noun for that. But me, I really believe in. I don't even believe in being equal. I believe in equity. Like,
Love
just
it.
know that I exist. Do not think you're superior than me because you're a male. That that is really important for me. And when I'm saying I'm raising a feminist, is that my 3-year-old, it's not because he's a boy, he cannot wash dishes and do the laundry and these things. So I teach him that very young. He does this, and he's not superior to anybody because he's a male. And sometimes I know, like, the because by his dad is something else. But one day he came back and he took off his shoes and he told me, pick it up. Oh my god. That day I was like, not by me. It doesn't work like that by me. So we got we got the shoes
He said, "Pick it
and
up." Oh Lord.
pick it up. And I said, no, it's not like that. By me, it's not like that. Because his dad, I, it's not, by his dad is, I'm not saying it's bad, but because, to me, because he's a boy, he's a little prince and they do everything for him.
Mm,
And me, it's not like that. I told
mm.
him plain out, by me, it's not like that. So you're gonna take your things, and yeah, it's my house, my rules.
That's good though, because otherwise, like, he will think that that is the way that it is, and that a woman should just serve his needs. And when he comes home, she should have food
Yeah,
ready for him, and she should take care
no,
of his
no, no.
clothes. And it's like, excuse me, boo, but she got her own stuff to do. Like, she not
Yeah,
here being a slave to you. Like, what? Oh, but I'm telling you,
so
there's lots of these
I'm
men
not
out
a
here with
feminist
that very
thinking like I know
ideology.
some women find joy in staying home and this thing.
Mm,
I'm not criticizing. If you love staying home and you do it because it's your choice, I have no problem with that. But if
yes.
you do it because that's what you're supposed to do as a woman, there is my problem.
See.
But I respect all kind of thinking and this, but I believe in men and women equity. Like,
Yeah, I think equity is the important term, because a lot of the time people would want to
yeah,
say they're equal, and it's like they're not. They're different in many different ways.
no,
And to
we
say that they're
can, yeah.
equal is just like not to acknowledge the strengths that either gender has. Like women give birth,
Yeah.
like men are not equal to women in that area at all. But we can have equity in that experience because a woman
I,
needs a man's support to get through that. It's like nice to have the support there as you're going through this journey, but it takes two to tango, like, and I think that's the like,
yeah.
acknowledging the role that each gender plays is important because everybody has a role to fulfill. But if we're thinking about like everybody's on the same playing field, that's not true. And then you wonder why
No,
some
no, no.
people are in positions where they're not thriving. It's because they're trying to be equal to somebody that they're not. They're not taking into account their own unique talent and skills and interests. And like you said, it's about equity. It's not necessarily about equality. It's just
Equity. The only thing I would say we need to be equal is for the pay, the salary. This has to be
facts.
equal. Because a
Equal
lot
pay
of
for equal
times
work.
equal pay. Yeah. This, I'm very, like, there's no equity for that. It's equal pay.
Yeah.
And I've
Yeah.
seen that on the island we don't talk about it, but I see a lot of in position. First of all, there are women in position, but sometimes you have these males trying to tell them what to do. They have a hard time seeing them on top. I've seen that.
It's
And
everywhere.
there's that kind of rivalry also with women. When one is in position, there will be that rivalry, you know. It's something to, yeah, it's really awkward because I think there are not so many positions for women, so there will be a rivalry, you know what I mean? So
Hmm.
it's a whole thing. I
I feel it. It's weird to me, especially
Yeah,
because St. Martin has had a lot of like our first prime minister was a woman on the debt side,
yeah,
and you would think that like I mean our prime minister now is a woman too. So
yeah,
yeah, even right
yeah.
now, but you would think that that would mean more equity for women throughout the society, but we don't see that. Like even period poverty is a discussion that I see Teen Times is fighting
Mm,
for young girls to be able to have just like feminine hygiene products available and accessible without that being a financial burden on women. Because it's not like we decided one day I want a period for the rest of my life. Like it's just nature's way, because we are
exactly.
carriers of life. But it's yeah weird to me that in a society that has women in power, we don't see that actually reflected in the growth of our community. Like it to me it's very sus, to be honest. I'm like, what are y'all doing? I'm like, you would think you'd look out for women, but here we are.
Yeah, yeah. And also I feel like we need that whole discussion because, women, we spend more since we have to buy more things for, you just said it, for the hygiene products. Like, we spend more, so we are more, how to say that, at risk of being poor. That's the truth, especially with inflation and all these things. So maybe someone needs to study that, I guess. And a lot of single moms too on the island. Well, we can talk about the women for, it's a big subject.
It is.
It's a big subject.
But yeah, like how is it being a single mom and trying to be a content creator? And like I feel like that's a lot of different roles to juggle, and with the whole mantra of like taking it easy, you know what I mean, and not necessarily having to be
Oh
strong all the
yeah.
time. How do you manage all of that? Like do you rely a lot on community to help make that easier for yourself?
Uh, I must say, Leo's dad and I, we make a great co-parenting team with my family also. So that's great. I know I can rely on them. And it's not always easy because sometimes I'm like, what are you trying to do? Seriously, what are you doing? Just look for a job and call it a day, like, for real. But I tried that. I tried it this summer. But then there's something telling me, Tracy, you need to create because you really love that. It's something that you love. So you cannot just forget it. And yeah, it's a lot of talking to myself and questioning and asking myself if I did the right thing, you know. But I'm very happy. I have a great support system. With Leo's dad, my son's Leo, is his name. My son, my family, they support me in what I do, and I have great friends too, so it helps.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think support is everything, especially like when you're trying to navigate what speaks to you. Because in life, it's like all trial and error. And I'm glad that you didn't feel like the pressure to have to stick to a conventional job when like your spirit was telling you, Tracy, baby girl, I know there's something else out there for you and you have to trust that, you know? And I mean, the work that you've been doing speaks for itself, and I'm glad that like you follow that inner intuition that's telling you to go down this path, because I already know like it's going to lead to so many opportunities for you, just even in like
Oh,
the
thank
stories
you.
that I've seen you tell thus far. Like they're incredibly powerful, and the fact that like even me being as far as I am, I can see that. I know it'll like, you know,
Oh.
percolate through the algorithm or whatever the hell Instagram be doing. But I feel like, yeah, like as an islander, like I feel seen in the stories that you make. And so for me, like that is the thing that's like
And
so
just a
important,
quick
you
fun
know?
story.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick fun story. Every time I say I'm stopping, I'll stop being creative. In my family, nobody have thyroid issues. Nobody have thyroid issues. I started getting thyroid issues in 2020, in 2017 after Irma, when I said I'll stop being creative. I don't want to be creative anymore, and I got an autoimmune disease linked to my thyroid. And same thing happened there in this at the new year. I went and it came back, you know. So in 2017 I had a disease. I was doing better for 3 years, and the day I said I don't want to be creative anymore, it came back for the new year. And I'm like, every time I trying to suppress that creativity, my body talks to me. It's true, because I went on Google and I'm like, well, what my body is trying to tell me, because it's impossible I get that disease. Every time I said, you know what? I don't want to do that creative things anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't, and it comes and it's like, no, no,
That is
no.
so
You have to be creative. That
crazy.
is you.
That is, I'm
It's
telling
crazy.
you.
Like, I swear.
The body be telling us things if we would choose to listen. Like it's
Yeah.
funny because my life coach was literally telling me that like the way that I manifest is through speaking, you know, like through that throat chakra. And I feel like it's probably very similar, like for
Mm,
you when you're creating, you're speaking your truth and that manifests in the
yeah.
world. And when you're not doing that, you're like blocking that chakra from doing what it's meant to do, which is for you to speak your truth. And so your
Ex-
body's like, babe,
mm,
what, like I'm gonna have to punish you because you're really like avoiding your path. And it's like the universe is pretty much telling you, Tracy, you have to do this. Like I'm going to make it difficult for you if you don't do it otherwise. And it's like so weird, but like so just like hilarious at the same
exactly.
time, that the body will like push you in this direction that's good for you on so many different levels. And it's like when you're not living your truth and following your purpose, you feel it physically in your body that you're not doing what you're supposed
And
to.
I even Googled it. I'm like, what is that disease? What that disease trying to tell me? You know, because you have these things called psychosomatic in French. I don't know how to say it in English, but all diseases have something they're trying to tell you. So I Googled
Facts.
it. I'm like, what you trying to tell me? What are you trying to tell me? And it's like blocking my creativity and not using my voice. I'm like, for real? For real? Just,
Answer right in front of you.
yeah, right there. So I'm like, okay, okay. So I'll listen to you, I guess. I have
That's
no choice.
funny. That is so funny. So I guess like now as a content creator, do you usually just go with sort of like the local festivals? Because I remember I saw that there was like that food festival on the Friend side recently. That was just so awesome. Honestly, every time I see this stuff, I'd be so sad that I'm
Oh
not there
yeah,
because
it
I'm like,
was
oh my
well
gosh.
put together.
Yes. Like, is that usually how you go about your process? Is like just going along with like the different events or cultural things that are happening and then like just talking to people and finding the story?
It really, yeah, that food festival I didn't cover, but it depends also on because sometimes the festival approach me, but the offer doesn't match what I'm worth, so I
Mm.
would decline the invite politely. It's not that I think I'm all of this or whatever, but it's work at the end of the day. It takes time, so I cannot do everything also. And sometimes is clients coming to me or me having an idea and going to clients. It really depends.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And like, are there other content creators that you work with a lot locally, or is it usually like you're doing your own thing, typically, like most of the time?
I'm doing my own thing most of the time, but we sometimes we're together and I really like what they're doing. Like the traveling island girl, Taina, she's from the French side, XXM thing, Charlotte, Amelie. I see them. We see each other. We know what each other are doing. We have respect for each other, which is amazing because often some clients feel like we're competing. We're not competing. We're in this together. And to me, the more content creators there will be, it will be better because we there will be more respect for our work and less bargaining. So
Hmm.
I'm like, come along and join the fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess like, are there specific like tools that you use when you're thinking about content creation, or specific medium of choice? Or is it usually like mixed media, like videos and telling the story through like a visual medium as opposed to like written or like photography and things like
I
that?
write a lot. I think when you look at my videos, you maybe think, "Oh, I just speak like that," but I write what I think. I write a lot. Um, yeah, I write my ideas. It's a lot of writing, and recently I discovered because for before I used to work at the local TV, then I went on my own as a content creator, and I was all over the place, going to all these the events, going to like you invite me, I'm there. But I realized I need quiet time for me to think, to reduce the noise. So it's really important in my creative process that I reduce that noise, and I write a lot. I listen to music. Um, I need stimulation. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess like, how do you sort of go about like, yeah, like getting inspired for the pieces that you create, or is it really just like an organic thing of when you're exploring the island for yourself, the opportunity sort of manifests and you're like, oh, like I see a story here, or like this is actually really beautiful and I want to share this with others?
It really depends. So sometimes I go with the calendar. We have events, and so I know I have that. Also, meeting people. Like the other day, I did a hike and I met this incredible guy. I'm like, oh, I would love to tell his story, but I have to do the hike again, which is another story because I have to take my camera and my mics and all of that. But it's really like that. I explore, and I notice I need a lot of stimulation, which means I need to listen to music. I love art. So, and sometimes there are not so much exhibition on the island. I miss that. But whenever there is something, an event, I'm going. Last time there was Greg Lecoeur. That guy is amazing. He's a videographer slash photographer, but he's taking pictures of the sea world. You can feel the emotion through the picture. It's amazing. And going to that event fed fulfilled me. I was like, oh, I love that. So yeah, it is good for my creativity, going to things like that,
Yeah,
meeting other creatives. Yeah.
that's awesome. I feel like the island has so much talent that when you share stories, you're
Yeah.
really just sharing the incredible stories and voices of the Caribbean people. And I agree that it is a bit of a bummer that we don't have more spaces for creative expression and like to really display the work of creative people locally, because there's so many incredible things that people do that people just aren't privy to hearing because they just don't know. And there should be a lot more spaces or platforms to allow like artists and creatives to just like show, because that is culture, like that is culture.
Artists, like, people see them, it's a passion, but sometimes maybe you need to pay them also, because if they're taking all that time to do an exhibition, so to maybe this is the gap, people are willing to do things. We have great artists on the island, but then they cannot live off this alone. I mean, that's the honest truth.
Hmm. Yeah.
Mm,
That is
it's
definitely one of
complicated.
the like obstacles in this whole
Mm,
industry. And that's one of the things where I feel like St. Martin needs to sort of diversify its economy a bit more outside of solely tourism, so that we can create income where we can then support a lot more of these, avenues of interest for folks. Because if we only have one hand that's feeding us and then that hand is struggling, then we all starving, no matter what it is that you do. But if we can figure out how to get multiple hands, some that are more reliable, that aren't as dependent on the global economy and like, what is happening in these bigger nations, then you constantly have a pipeline of, income that's coming to the island that is allows the community to sustain itself. Because it's like with Irma and COVID, like it really just showed like how
oh
tourism,
yeah,
as
it
much
was
as it's like a
horrible.
cute, way of like funding the economy locally, it is not sustainable. And as a result, like every
Mm,
other pillar of our community suffers when that pillar suffers. And that's not good
yeah,
for the growth of culture and the growth of a community and a nation. You need to have other ways to feed yourself. And yeah, I think there's just like a lot of reflection that needs to happen there around what is important to us as an island, and like how do we become
yeah.
more sustainable in like just the way that we take care of our community, whether it be more like agro-tourism or like people becoming more cultivators, or like we just create more of a digital economy where like people like yourself that are creating content locally can create content for other islands, or like be consultants to creators in other parts of the world,
Mm,
like give our knowledge and skills to others without having to necessarily leave the island or like set up a whole infrastructure or business front, which all comes at a cost. And if you're not making reliable
yeah,
income, it's like, why even make that investment?
yeah. It's crazy. Well, it's not crazy. It's a question we need to answer, but it takes time, and I mean energy also. But eventually, we will have no choice, and we will have to, because even for the environment, at some point we will have to ask ourselves the right questions.
That is a fact. The island can only take so much. She's only so big.
The path to go to the natural pool. I feel like
Yeah,
so many, because so many people pass there. It's come on, sorry, I'm speaking. What is it called? Like, the rocks are going down.
like
And in France they
erosion.
had that. Voila, yes, this. And in Marseille they had that, and I saw they applied a capacity, which means per day certain amount of people can go to that place, because yeah, they can't anymore because of the erosion. Yeah. And I'm like, that's a
Wow.
great idea. And I talked
That
to a
is a
girl
good
in Martinique.
idea.
Yeah, and she explained me the whole thing about it because she studied that, and she's like, yeah, tourism is good, but mass tourism, with the problem with mass tourism, at certain point you exceed the capacity of the territory, so you need to put a certain like certain capacity for a day, a month, like this, so you can protect the environment, number one, for the air, because the planet doesn't go as quick as we think it's going.
Exactly. And that comes back to when you were saying like we're the friendly island, but we need to have boundaries. Like I think this very
Yeah,
much
we
comes
need
back to that of like when it comes
yeah.
to our natural spaces, we need to have very clear boundaries because if the island's ecosystem fails, it's taking us out with it. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like we are a part of nature
yeah,
and you can only push it so far before it too starts to show signs of its own mental health problems, where it's like the land itself can only take so much, constant just like of human intervention before it's like,
yeah.
okay, I'm just going
But so
to
far on
completely
the beach,
collapse. Yeah.
I don't see the beach are packed. I don't know. It's not so packed, right? I don't
But
know,
it's
but
like with like the
maybe even
development
that,
on the beaches, that to
with the
me is a red
sunscreen,
flag.
imagine the amount of sunscreen we put, and then we go to the
Mm,
beach. We put and we go. That, yeah.
another
But
issue
there's
right
one guy
there.
I really like following Tadzio from the
The
island.
Nature
Is
Foundation.
is Yeah, he's talking so much sense. All these things we will have to talk about it somehow.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you even mentioning that because I think that's such a good point. And I feel like at least the friend side is much better at like at least having reserves for aspects of like the
Yeah.
friend side's natural ecosystem. Like the death side doesn't even really have like any I don't remember
Oh,
hearing
Nature
or
Foundation, it's
knowing.
not a reserve?
Um I I thought the foundation like protected, yeah, maybe like aspects of the ocean. I'm not aware of like land reserves though. Like
Mm,
at least I know on the front side you have like huge aspects of like the mount like the
yeah.
hillsides that are like reserved land. I don't know if we have that necessarily on the dead side. I know there are like protected trees and stuff like that like they have petitioned for that are like very historical, but in terms of like actual plots of the ecosystem on land, I'm not, yeah, I wouldn't really know
But we have
about
two
that.
organizations, Réserve naturelle and Conservatoire du littoral. They protect the the littoral, the shore, all of this. And there
Mm,
is the A Museum Naturalis on French side, but it's two people. It's, I forgot his name, but he's very good. Is I'm not sure he's an organization, but he's doing such a good job at taking, first of all, he's taking pictures of all the species on the island. That's amazing. His book is so beautiful. And then is really educating people on what to plant, so these birds can come, and what to do, and I like
that's
it. We need
beautiful.
that. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, we need more of that because otherwise, like, especially if we are going to be more cultivators, we should know, like, what are the types of plants that are indigenous to the land? Like, what are the types of plants that help restore the ecosystem?
exactly.
So
Mm,
we're not just planting, but not really planting in alignment with what the land needs and what's important to the land because otherwise we just start to plant what we want to eat and that's not
yeah.
good.
And after Irma, he was really encouraging people to plant certain type of trees, for the birds to come back, for these to come back. And I was like, oh, that's so smart, because I didn't think of this. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that's why we need community to come together and have these types of
Mm,
conversations because then otherwise people just don't know. Like they really and truly don't know any better.
yeah, I didn't
And so
know.
they just go about what they do know, which isn't
Mm,
always the best, you know. But I'm curious, like, as we wrap up the podcast, like, as a content creator, you know, who's sharing these stories about our island, like, where do you kind of see this going to, like, improve just like defining like our culture? Because I feel like that's really like the work that you do is like as a cultural advocate, even though it's clips and videos and stories, ultimately what it is reflecting the culture. So, you know, even though we are a melting pot, I'm curious, like, is there like any vision that you see for how the island should be, especially in like how it expresses itself and just being like a community that is inclusive and truly diverse?
yeah, me, my like what I see is that the island highlight the people more. I would love seeing that, like highlighting their stories. Jonathan, he did a great movie about, you know, really understanding the island and um what is going to happen if we're not asking ourselves the right questions. And I really liked it. And to me, this is it. Like, when you visit a place, an island or a country or whatever, ask yourself, who are the people who live there, how they're living there, how is it for them, you know? Ask yourself these questions. To me, it's important. And yeah, I hope the people will be highlighted a little bit more, you know, their stories, what they do, how they make the island shine, because it's through them also. And yeah,
That is beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. Like, I really, really appreciate
thank
you
you
taking the
so much,
time.
Nicole.
Of
Thank you for
course.
inviting me, and I really love what you're doing, by the way. Voilà.
Aw, thank you.